You know that feeling when you realize everything you thought you knew about a place was completely wrong? Picture this. You're on a rooftop in Isfahan, watching the sun set over a city that's older than London, older than Paris, older than almost anywhere you can think of in Europe. You're looking at architecture so intricate, so mathematically perfect, that it makes you wonder why we ever stopped building like this. This is Iran. Not the Iran you see in the news, the Iran of ancient Persia, of poetry and gardens, of engineering so advanced that civilizations are still trying to figure out how they did it. This is a country where ancient engineers carved homes into cliffs, and people still live in them today. They built cities in deserts so extreme, NASA now uses them to test equipment for Mars. So forget everything you think you know. Iran might just be the most misunderstood country on Earth. Because sometimes the most beautiful stories are hidden in the places we're told not to look. Iran sits at what was once the crossroads of empires. To the west, the Ottoman Empire. To the east, the Silk Road to China. To the north, the steppes of Central Asia. And to the south, the Persian Gulf and the trade routes to India. This is where civilizations met, traded, and fought. But Iran is not a museum. It's a living, breathing tapestry. Ancient and modern. Spiritual and secular. Eastern and Western. A place where the call to prayer echoes over traffic jams, where ancient wisdom lives in modern mouths. Let's begin where most stories of modern Iran begin, in the capital that embodies every contradiction this country holds. Tehran sits between two worlds, the ancient and the ultra-modern, the sacred and the secular, the mountain and the plain. 12 million people call this sprawling metropolis home, creating one of the world's largest urban areas in a valley that seems to stretch endlessly toward distant horizons. The Azadi Tower rises like a white flame against the Alborz Mountains. Built in 1971 to celebrate 2,500 years of Persian monarchy, its form echoes ancient Persian arches while reaching toward the future. After the Islamic Revolution, it was renamed Freedom Tower, but the structure remained unchanged, a monument that carries multiple meanings in its stone. The Malad Tower pierces the sky, one of the tallest structures in Asia, broadcasting signals across a city that never sleeps. Built to withstand the earthquakes that regularly shake this seismically active region, its engineering represents a triumph of modern Iranian technology. A 435-metre testament to building safely in one of the world's most earthquake-prone capitals. The Golestan Palace tells the story of Iran's encounter with modernity. Here, Qajar kings mixed European chandeliers with Persian tile work. French furniture sat alongside traditional carpets. The mirror hall reflects light like a jewel box, while the marble throne bears witness to centuries of ceremony and change. Walk through the Grand Bazaar and you enter a different Tehran entirely. Here the air is thick with cardamom and rosewater, with the sound of copper being hammered and Persian being spoken in a dozen regional accents. Merchants whose families have traded here for generations sell everything from saffron to silk, from hand-woven carpets to smartphones. Above it all looms Mount Damavand, Iran's highest peak and a sleeping volcano that has watched over this land for millennia. In Persian mythology, Damavand is where the dragon Ajidahaka was chained until the end of time. To Tehranis, it's both guardian and symbol, a snow-capped reminder that some things endure beyond empires and revolutions. On clear days, the mountain dominates the skyline, a 5,600-metre giant that makes the city's tallest towers seem humble by comparison. Tehran carries memory in its bones. Every street corner holds multiple histories. Every building tells stories of different dreams. It's a city that refused to choose between tradition and progress, instead finding ways to honour both. From this layered capital, we travel to a place where Persian elegance reached its most refined expression. Kashan is where Persians mastered the art of refined living. Not the grand monuments of empires, but the careful beauty of homes designed for both comfort and elegance. The historic houses of Tabatabai and Borujerdi reveal the genius of Persian domestic architecture. These are not palaces, but family homes built by merchants who understood that true luxury lies not in display, but in comfort, not in size, but in proportion. The Finn Garden is paradise reduced to its essence: water, shade, and geometric perfection. Built in the 16th century, it follows the classical Chahar Bagh design, 4 channels representing the 4 rivers of paradise flowing from a central fountain. The Sultan Amir Ahmad bathhouse reveals another dimension of Persian culture, a subterranean world of domed chambers where cleansing became a ritual of both body and spirit. The stepped pools and private chambers created spaces for contemplation and community, where the act of bathing became a meditation on purity and renewal. These houses teach the Persian art of living, the understanding that paradise is not a place you go after death, but a place you create in life. From these intimate spaces, we journey to a city that proclaimed itself half the world. Isfahan, Esfahan, Nesf-e-Jahan. Isfahan is half the world. This was the boast of Safavid kings, and standing in Nakshi Jahan Square, you understand their confidence. This is one of the largest public squares in the world, built in the early 1600s when London was still a collection of muddy streets. The symmetry is breathtaking. The Shah Mosque to the south, the Sheikh Lotfola Mosque to the east, the Ali Kapu Palace to the west, and the Grand Bazaar to the north. It's a stage set for empire, a space designed to overwhelm and inspire in equal measure. The Shah Mosque rises like a prayer made of turquoise and gold, its dome changing colour with a light from silver at dawn, the glowing ember at sunset. Across the square, the smaller Sayyid Mosque holds deeper secrets, built not for crowds, but for contemplation. Its jewel box interior shifts from cream to rose to gold as you move through its intimate spaces. But the real architectural treasure is the Jame Mosque, a living encyclopedia of Persian Islamic design spanning 8 centuries. Here, Seljuk brick mingles with Mongol tilework and Safavid domes, each dynasty adding layers to this masterpiece. Walk through its chambers and you trace the evolution of Iranian architecture, from austere early Islam to the flowering of Persian artistic genius. The Ali Kapu Palace rises 6 stories above the square, its music room carved with intricate muqarnas that served both as decoration and acoustics. From its terrace, Safavid kings watched polo matches and festivals, ruling over an empire that stretched from the Ottoman borders to the Indian Ocean. Isfahan's bridges are poems written in stone and water. The Sio-Sepol Bridge, built in 1602, spans the Zayande River with 33 arches, each arch reflected in the water to create perfect circles of light. Walking through Isfahan is like walking through the dreams of a civilization at its peak, a place where beauty and power join to create something eternal. From this flowering of Islamic art, we journey to the desert where older faiths still burn their ancient flames. Yazd sits at the edge of 2 deserts, a city that should not exist. Built where the Dashti Kavir and Dashti Lut meet, it's an oasis created not by water, but by human ingenuity and spiritual determination. For over 3,000 years, people have lived here in one of Earth's harshest environments. The tall windcatcher towers rise like ancient sentinels, capturing desert breezes and breathing cool air into the rooms below. Beneath the city, qanats flow like underground rivers, carrying mountain water across hundreds of kilometers of sand. The buildings themselves seem to grow from the earth, thick walls of clay and adobe that hold the coolness of night through the blazing heat of day. Yazd is the colour of sand and sunset, its narrow alleyways winding between earth-toned buildings that merge with the desert landscape. At night, the city glows like a constellation of earthen stars, its ancient harmony with the desert environment, a masterclass in sustainable living. This mastery of desert survival has ancient roots. Not far from Yazd, the 4,000-year-old Chogar Zanbil ziggurat still stands, a relic of Elamite ingenuity that predates the Persian Empire and showcases early survival in Iran's harshest landscapes. This is the heartland of Zoroastrianism, the world's first monotheistic religion. In the fire temple, a flame has burned continuously for over 1,500 years, tended by priests whose families have served as firekeepers for generations. Pilgrims come from around the world to stand before this eternal fire, to feel the presence of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord. The towers of silence rise from the desert like forgotten monuments. Here, for centuries, Zoroastrians brought their dead to be consumed by vultures, believing that burial or cremation would pollute the sacred elements of earth and fire. Death returns to nature, flesh feeds the birds, and the soul journeys to judgment. But to really understand the extremes of this landscape, you must venture into the Dashti Lut, one of the hottest places on Earth. Satellite measurements have recorded surface temperatures of over 70 degrees Celsius, hot enough to kill. The desert stretches like an alien landscape of salt flats and wind-carved rock formations called calots, sculpted by millennia of sandstorms into fantastic towers and valleys. Here, in one of Earth's most unforgiving places, Iran reveals its deepest truth. This is a land that breeds survivors, innovators, architects of the improbable. Where others see obstacles, Iranians see opportunity. From the extremes of the desert, we travel to a city built on gentler dreams. Shiraz is the city where the Persian soul learned to sing. For over 1,000 years, this has been the beating heart of Persian literature. The place where poets transformed love into verse and verse into prayer. The Nasir al-Mulk Mosque, known as the Pink Mosque, transforms with the dawn. Built in the 1870s, its rose-coloured exterior hints at the magic within, but nothing prepares you for what's inside. Blue and amber, ruby and emerald, the colours dance across Persian carpets, and marble columns shifting with each passing minute as the sun climbs higher. This is not simply decoration, but theology made visible. The 99 names of God written in light across the floor. Worshippers kneel surrounded by pure colour, their prayers rising through rainbows. Standing in the prayer hall at sunrise, you witness something that cannot be photographed or described, only experienced. The moment when architecture becomes prayer, when light becomes sacred, when the material world opens a window to something beyond. The tomb of legendary poet Hafez sits in a garden where pilgrims come not just to pay respects, but to seek guidance. They open his book of poetry at random, and whatever verse they find becomes an answer to their questions. Near the city centre, the shrine of Ali ibn Hamza displays the intricate mirror work known as Ayane Kari. Its 14th century interior covered in small mirrors that reflect and multiply light throughout the space. This mausoleum, dedicated to the nephew of Imam Hussein, creates complex patterns of reflected light that create an otherworldly atmosphere within the sacred space. Shiraz was once famous for its wine, produced in the hills surrounding the city and exported across the ancient world. The Shiraz grape, now grown in Australia and South Africa, originated in these hills. However, after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, wine production was banned in Iran, ending thousands of years of winemaking tradition, though the vineyards still exist and some continue to grow grapes for other purposes. From this city of poets and gardens, we journey to the ruins of empire. Persepolis, the city of Persians. Even in ruins, it commands the world's attention. This was the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, built by Darius the Great 2,500 years ago. At its height, this empire stretched from Greece to India, from Egypt to Central Asia, the largest empire the world had ever seen. Yet Persepolis was built not to intimidate, but to celebrate unity in diversity. The Great Staircase leading to the Apadana Palace tells the story of empire through art rather than conquest. Stone reliefs show delegations from across the known world. Scythians bringing gold, Bactrians leading camels, Egyptians carrying ivory, Indians with exotic animals. Each group is depicted with dignity, wearing traditional dress, bringing their finest gifts. This was not tribute extracted by force, but offerings presented by partners in a vast confederation. Just a few kilometers away, carved into the living rock face of Nakshe Rustam, the great kings found their eternal resting place. 4 cross-shaped tombs, cut deep into the cliff, hold the remains of Darius and his successors, watching over their greatest creation. Even in death, they remained guardians of Persepolis, their cliff tomb facades showing the same theme that dominated their ceremonial capital. The kings supported by representatives of all nations, unity carved in stone for eternity. Back at Persepolis, the columns rise like stone forests, their capitals carved with bulls and lions and mythical creatures. Many still bear the marks of ancient fires, reminders of the night Alexander the Great burned Persepolis to the ground. Whether from revenge for Persian invasions of Greece or in a moment of drunken madness, the destruction marked the end of the Achaemenid Empire. But the vision of Persepolis survived its physical destruction. The Cyrus Cylinder, often called the first declaration of human rights, proclaimed revolutionary principles for its time, that all people should be free to worship their own gods, speak their own languages, follow their own customs. In an age of brutal conquest, Persia chose tolerance and cooperation over oppression and forced conversion. Standing among the ruins at sunset, as the stones turn golden against the darkening sky, you sense the ghost of an ancient vision, that diverse people could live together in peace under one empire. This was Cyrus's revolutionary idea, that true power lies not in crushing differences but in protecting them, that the strongest empire is built on unity, not uniformity. From these ancient stones, we travel to the edge of the Iranian plateau, where land gives way to the waters that carry something extremely important. The Persian Gulf is the world's most consequential body of water. Not for its size, it's smaller than the Great Lakes, but for what flows beneath and through it. Until 1908, the Persian Gulf was known for fishing, pearling, and dhow building. Then oil was discovered in Iran, and everything changed. Today, this narrow sea holds nearly 3/5 of the world's proven oil reserves and 1/3 of its natural gas reserves. But it's not just what lies beneath the Gulf, it's what passes through it. Every day, 21 million barrels of oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage between Iran and Oman that connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. That's 21% of all global oil consumption, more than 1/4 of all seaborne oil trade. The strait is just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, so narrow that the UN has established traffic separation schemes with 2-mile wide shipping lanes, one for incoming traffic, one for outgoing. For many of these shipments, there is no practical alternative route. This narrow waterway gives Iran extraordinary leverage over the global economy. China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Singapore receive 65% of all oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. When Tehran threatens to close the strait, oil markets react instantly. When tankers are attacked in these waters, the tremors reach gas stations in Tokyo and Mumbai within hours. Yet for all its strategic importance, the Persian Gulf remains a place of extraordinary natural beauty. Qeshm Island sits at the mouth of the strait like a natural gateway, its valley of stars carved by wind into alien landscapes. The island's Hara mangrove forests create the only such ecosystem in the Persian Gulf. The Chaku Canyon cuts through Qeshm like a natural air conditioning system, its walls channeling cool air through passages that drop temperatures by 20 degrees. Endangered hawksbill turtles nest on these shores, their ancient migration routes crossing the same waters now traversed by oil tankers. Standing on Qeshm's shores, you see oil tankers navigate waters once sailed by pearl divers and spice traders. Here, ancient geography meets modern geopolitics, and Iran remains what it has always been, a crossroads the world cannot ignore. From these strategic straits, we head north to the mountain passes where the Silk Road carved its path through Iran. Tabriz sits at the crossroads of Iran, Turkey, and Azerbaijan, a city that has felt the footsteps of every army and caravan that moved between Europe and Asia. For centuries, this was the capital of Persian empires, the place where Silk Road traders gathered to exchange goods and ideas. The Blue Mosque of Tabriz stands as a 15th century masterpiece of Persian tilework. Though earthquakes have left only fragments of its once magnificent blue ceramic facade. Tabriz's location made it a prize worth fighting for, and the city bears the scars of its strategic importance. It has been conquered by Mongols and Ottomans, by Russians and Arabs, each leaving their mark on the culture and architecture. Near the city, the village of Kandavan clings to volcanic cliffs like a living geological museum. Here people have carved homes directly into the cone-shaped rocks formed by ancient volcanic eruptions. These rock cave houses, some over 700 years old, create a settlement that seems to grow from the mountain itself. Chimneys rising from stone spires, windows carved into volcanic cones. Entire families live inside formations that nature sculpted and humans simply refined. Lake Urmia was once one of the world's largest salt lakes, so vast it was called the turquoise solitaire of Azerbaijan. Now it has shrunk to a fraction of its former size, its shores revealing the ecological fragility that affects much of Iran. Where water remains, the lake glows an incredible pink from salt-loving algae, creating a landscape that shifts from turquoise to rose depending on the season and salinity. Moving north toward the Caspian Sea, the landscape transforms completely. The Caspian Hyrcanian forests represent one of Earth's oldest ecosystems, a temperate rainforest that survived the ice ages to become a living museum of evolution. These forests once sheltered the Caspian tiger until the last one was killed in the 1970s, though Persian leopards and brown bears still roam beneath the ancient canopy. Mazalay clings to a mountainside like a natural amphitheatre, its houses built into the slope, so that the roof of one becomes the yard of another. Higher still, Rudkan Castle rises above the same Caspian forests, a 10th century fortress that requires hours of climbing to reach its ramparts' commanding views. From these green heights, we journey a little south, where an ancient fortress tells stories of resilience and rebirth. In the desert of southeastern Iran, Agi Bam rises from the sand like a mirage made solid. This 2,000-year-old citadel is the world's largest adobe structure, built entirely from mud, straw, and palm tree trunks. At its peak, this vast fortress city housed 13,000 people along the Silk Road. For centuries, it stood as an impregnable desert stronghold, its massive walls and 38-metre governor's tower protecting merchants and families. In this harsh landscape, survival meant mastering the art of building with the earth. Then, in 2003, a devastating earthquake reduced most of the citadel to rubble in seconds, killing 26,000 people and destroying a masterpiece that had endured for millennia. Take a moment to really look at these before and after images. The scale of what was lost in those few seconds is almost impossible to comprehend. Yet, like Iran itself, Agi Bam refuses to surrender to catastrophe. UNESCO and Iranian craftsmen have spent 2 decades painstakingly rebuilding the fortress using traditional techniques, proving that some things are too beautiful, too fundamentally Iranian to let disappear. Standing among its restored ramparts, you witness Iran's deepest truth in action. That persistence, not perfection, defines a civilization's true strength. We have traveled through 7,000 years of Iranian civilization, but to understand Iran today, we must reckon with 1979. The revolution that redefined everything. The Shah's Iran was swept away by a popular uprising that brought the Islamic Republic to power. a seismic shift that changed not just Iran but the entire Middle East. Look at Tehran's streets in the 1970s versus today. Women in miniskirts became women in hijabs. Nightclubs became mosques. Pop music went underground. The transformation was total and immediate, a society rebuilt according to different principles overnight. The revolution imposed new restrictions alongside new freedoms. Women gained access to universities in unprecedented numbers, but lost the right to choose their dress. The country became more self-reliant but more isolated. Persian culture strengthened at the cost of international integration. 45 years later, Iran remains caught between the world it was and the world it chose to become. Here's the thing about Iran. We've just travelled through 7,000 years of one of humanity's most enduring civilizations, and most of the world knows it only through the lens of the last 45 years. Regardless of your opinions on the 1979 revolution, whether you view it as necessary change or tragic loss, it represents less than 1% of this country's story. Yet somehow, those 4 decades have overshadowed millennia of innovation, artistry, and human achievement that should leave us speechless. We found cities carved into cliffs that still house families today. Engineers who perfected the art of making ice in deserts hot enough to test Mars equipment. Architecture so mathematically perfect, it makes modern design look like we've forgotten how to build. These people were creating paradise gardens and solving impossible engineering problems when much of the world was still figuring out basic survival. Iran doesn't fit into neat categories because it predates most of them. You cannot reduce a civilization this complex to any single government, any one era, or any simple narrative. Iran was extraordinary long before our current politics existed, and it will continue being extraordinary long after today's headlines are forgotten. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time for another world tour.